You found this podcast probably because you know a little bit about our ministry called Time of Grace and are passionate about connecting people to God through all kinds of media. Well, did you know that we do a lot more besides just television and podcasting? If you check out our website, timeofgrace.org, you're going to find tons of ways to learn about the good news of Jesus. From daily written devotions to daily video devotions, tons of podcasts, blogs, our Bible Basics series called Bible Breath, and books and resources and more resources to help you in your walk with God. So if you're interested in any of that, just go to timeofgrace.org.
In Matthew chapter 18, Jesus' disciple Peter asked Jesus, how many times should we forgive someone who sins against us? And Jesus said, Peter suggested up to 7 times. That seems like a lot. Jesus said, at 7, you're just getting started. Not 7, but up to 77, he said. And then he went and told a story. So bear with me. It's a bit of a longer story, but this is what Jesus said. He said, therefore, the kingdom of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. As he began the settlement, a man who owed him 10,000 bags of gold was brought to him. Since he was not able to pay, the master ordered that he and his wife and his children and all that he had be sold to repay the debt. At this, the servant fell on his knees before him. Be patient with me, he begged, and I will pay back everything. The servant's master took pity on him, canceled the debt, and let him go. But when that servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 silver coins. He grabbed him and began to choke him. Pay back what you owe me, he demanded. His fellow servant fell to his knees and begged him, be patient with me and I will pay it back. But he refused. Instead, he went off and had the man thrown into prison until he could pay the debt. When the other servants saw what had happened, they were outraged and went and told their master everything that had happened. Then the master called the servant in. You wicked servant, he said, I canceled all that debt of yours because you begged me to. Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servant just as I had on you? In anger, his master handed him over to the jailers to be tortured until he should pay back all he owed. And then Jesus finished by saying, this is how my heavenly Father will treat each of you unless you forgive your brother or sister from your heart. So the point of the story is pretty simple. A man owes another man a very significant debt. Just imagine the next 3 months of your paycheck that you earn. And that's roughly what this man owed another man. And of course, the man didn't have 3 months of paychecks all saved up, so he didn't have the debt. And so he threw him into prison, which seems like until he could repay the debt, which seems to be a very reasonable thing to do. It was a pretty significant debt. It seems reasonable until you see the bigger picture. That this man who had just thrown this person in prison for owing 3 months' worth of salary had just been forgiven. The equivalent of what it would take him over 1,800 years to make. He had been forgiven this massive debt, and yet he was still holding on to this much smaller debt. And of course, 3 months' debt is very significant. 3 months of salary, I mean, that's not a small thing. Just like the ways that people hurt you, the ways that people sin against you, the ways that people inflict pain in your life, that's not insignificant. And Jesus isn't calling it insignificant. He's just saying that as we decide how to handle the people who hurt us, keep in mind the bigger picture. Keep in mind the bigger debt that God has already forgiven us. A debt that we could never pay back. Forgiveness for every sin you have ever committed, that you will ever commit. The ones that other people know about, the ones that you know about, and even the ones that only God knows about. It's all forgiven. And Jesus wants there to be consistency. That should have an impact on how we forgive others. How we forgive should be modeled after how God forgives us. And how does God forgive us? Ask the woman at the well that Jesus met one day. Ask Peter. After Peter denied Jesus 3 times, just a few hours after promising he would never do such a thing even once. Ask the woman who had been caught in the sin of adultery and brought to Jesus. Or ask the thief on the cross. They know how God forgives. Graciously, freely, and completely. You are forgiven.